Walk us through the thinking around this 2.1%. It's fascinating that Spain can say they can deliver the same capability targets that NATO wants for less of the spend. Where is that math coming from? Is NATO doing that 5% math wrong?
Well, of course, good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. Just let me walk you through our analysis on defense capabilities and defense spending. Basically, the main idea is very simple, is that the necessary spending will come as a result of a fully fledged analysis of the capabilities that are needed to provide for the NATO defense on the threats that have been identified. There's been a complete analysis that was run basically a month ago on the capabilities of updating the threats and on the capabilities that are needed to cover for those threats. And Spain will, of course, as the other allies, make good on their commitments to cover for the capabilities that are our share, that are our responsibility. We will be a responsible ally, as we've always been. The issue here is that the coverage of those capabilities will come at a cost. And what we're saying is that this particular cost for Spain, as we've estimated within our Ministry of Defense, will amount to a specific number, which is, in terms of percentage of GDP, 2.1%. So this is not related to making good our commitments or not. It's just a different estimation of how much will it cost for Spain to make good on our commitments with respect to the covering of the capabilities that are necessary for NATO to protect itself.
Minister, good morning. It's Guy. 5% is the number. Why do you think you're different?
Well, again, we're not different. The only thing that we're saying is that the discussion should not focus around a specific ad hoc number. What we're saying is that the discussion, as it has been the case for the previous months, should focus on updating the threats. That's point number one. And then once you have the threats updated, you have to get an estimation of what are the capabilities that you need to face those threats. And then you have to share the cost of those capabilities amongst the different allies. And this is what has been done over the past few months. And Spain will make good on our share, on our fair share. And the only
5% is the number. 5% is the number.
Sure.
Everybody else is doing it. Everybody else is saying we will do 5%, almost everybody else. The President of the United States is questioning Article 5, the commitments. Why should Spain enjoy the coverage that NATO provides under Article 5 if it is not prepared to spend the same number, 5%, as everybody else?
Again, allow me to agree to disagree. To me, what is actually key is that each and every one of the allies makes good on its commitments to cover for the capabilities that are necessary to actually protect the alliance. And this is what Spain will be doing. And we will be doing our fair share as the rest of the allies. And again, Spain will not be an outlier on this. We will be protecting, as the rest of the allies, NATO from the different threats that have been identified. We will make good on our commitment towards providing for those capabilities that are needed.
Minister, we've talked plenty of times on Bloomberg Television and at various events. You've said this in various press conferences. Spain is having a moment in the sun. The economy is doing well. The inflation numbers are coming out good. The labor economy is finally far more productive than it has been in years, something reflected in the bond market. If not now, then when, in terms of increasing the defense spending to beyond 2.1%?
Well, again, I think the discussion is not the increase of defense spending per se, or for the sake of just having a higher number. Again, we have to derive the specific number that is needed from a fully fledged previous analysis on what are the threats and how to cover for those threats. That's, I think, pretty easy to understand. And Spain will make good on covering our commitments in terms of those capabilities. We've actually been increasing our spending and investment in defense over the past few years, more than doubling it. And we also increased this year in 2025, making good, as you said, on our good economic moment as well.
Yep.
We increased our defense spending up to 2% of GDP from barely 1.4 in 2024. So we're doing our share. We will be covering for those capabilities, and we will be doing our bit when it comes to defending NATO allies.
Dick Schoof, the Dutch Prime Minister, is currently answering questions in The Hague as we start the NATO summit. He says it is too early to talk about repercussions for Spain if it doesn't make 5%. Do you expect repercussions? Do you expect there to be some sort of blowback as a result of this? Are repercussions something you're prepared for?
Well, again, let me go back to my argument before. Spain is behaving as a responsible ally, making good on our commitments to cover for the capabilities that are needed. Therefore, of course, no repercussions should derive from making good on our commitments and from being a reliable NATO ally, covering for the capabilities that we did commit to and that are necessary to defend NATO from the different threats that have been identified by experts.
Minister, outside of the NATO spend, Spain also making news when it comes to a different topic in Europe, which, of course, is banking consolidation. You made an announcement yesterday in terms of the conditions around the BBVA takeover bid for Sabadell, imposing some very strong conditions we haven't seen in previous iterations of M&A in Spain and, frankly, across Europe. Walk us through one of those conditions, which is simply the change in terms of pushing apart, if this takeover does go through, creating them as two separate legal entities for a minimum of 3 years, as much as 5 years. You claim it's to protect jobs, protect branches. What changes in 3 or 5 years?
Well, as you said, we did authorize the takeover bid yesterday, imposing one condition, which is that for a period of 3 years, both entities have to keep a separation, legal separation, and also separate management of specific policies, such as credit policy, HR policies as well, or even policies related to the management of branches or financial inclusion. Our main take here is that for the next 3 years, there will be a transition period where we do not expect a discontinuity in those specific policies. As I said, credit for firms, HR policies, or also financial inclusion policies, the dealing with particularly rural branches. We do not expect a discontinuity as a consequence of the takeover. What we want is that in this transition process, the creation of value added for shareholders of both firms can be compatible with the protection of those
Minister, I hear
interests.
I hear you on that. But when you look at the previous, again, iterations, we're looking at CaixaBank, we're looking at Bankia, for example, in that merger, the conditions weren't as strong. Why can BBVA not execute the same kind of takeover that we've seen with the likes of Caixa and Bankia, given that that has been the roadmap in Spain for quite some time?
Yes, let me also give you a bit of a context on how does the national legislation deal with these takeover processes in all sectors, but also within the financial sector. So there are different steps throughout these takeover processes. First, of course, financial supervisors have to give their green light in terms of the impact on financial stability. Then we have competition authorities giving the green light in terms of competition concentration issues. And in this case, what the competition authority was to actually go to stage 2, which means authorizing the operation, again, this acquisition, with specific conditions. Actually, the conditions from the competition authority went also to a period from 3 up to 5 years. Just let me finish 1 second, because this is important. The fact that for the first time, the competition authority imposed those conditions in this stage 2 actually opens the door.
Minister, I hate to interrupt you, but just for time, Minister, I absolutely hate to interrupt you, but just for time, I have to ask you the final question here. There is an argument that this deal, this potential transaction, is getting more heat for more political reasons than financial, simply because of Sabadell's concentration in Catalonia. What do you have to say to that in terms of the political ramifications of what this takeover might entail?
Well, I would say directly that this is not true. Let me just maybe link it to what I was just saying, that the National Authority for Competition actually understood the difficulty, the specificity of this operation, leading it towards what they call stage 2 with specific conditions for a period of 3 up to 5 years, which is, again, what also the government has done in the remit of our competences, of course, which have to do with the protection of public interest when it comes to reasons different from the competition, from the defense of competition issues, which is protection, as I said, of workers, protection of firms, and protection also of clients in terms of financial inclusion.